Go ahead.
Our mission, Helping Parents Heal, is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting parents whose children have passed. Through support and resources offered, we aspire to help individuals become shining light parents, meaning a shift from a state of emotional heaviness to one of hopefulness and greater peace of mind. Helping Parents Heal goes a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and afterlife evidence in a non-dogmatic way. Helping Parents Heal affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background, and encourage open dialogue. Attendance at this meeting is voluntary. We hope that participants will learn from and share with each other. Discussions here are confidential and not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Zoom meetings run by leadership are not confidential. These meetings typically feature guest presenters and are posted on YouTube so that affiliate members worldwide can watch and benefit. Neither type of Helping Parents Heal meeting is designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers, allowing parents to learn about many possible ways to heal. This includes presenters covering progressive topics such as afterlife evidence and connecting with our children who have passed. The views expressed by our guest speakers may or may not reflect the opinions of Helping Parents Heal leaders and members, so we ask that you take from their presentation whatever may benefit you personally. Welcome, everyone. We're so glad you're with us this evening, and thank you, Suzanne, for being here.
Yes, thank you, Suzanne, for being here. And I'll read your short bio. I just am so impressed with everything that you've done, and I don't know if everyone is aware of your life path, which has been so amazing. Suzanne Giesemann is an author and teacher of Awakened Living. She has been included on the Watkins list of 100 most spiritually influential living people. A former U.S. Navy commander and aide to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff with a master's degree in national security affairs. Today, she shares 21st century spirituality, merging the latest scientific understanding about consciousness with ancient spiritual wisdom. Her work provides stunning evidence of our essential interconnectedness. She teaches proven methods that anyone can use to connect with the many levels of our multidimensional reality. She has authored 15 books, 6 best-selling Hemi-Sync recordings, and YouTube videos reaching millions of viewers. She produces the Daily Way inspirational messages, the Awakened Way app, and hosts the top-ranking Messages of Hope podcast. She leads classes, workshops, retreats, and Awakened Way cruises, and serves as faculty with the Shift Network and Humanities team. Suzanne is known for her joyful, down-to-earth style of making deep spiritual concepts easy to understand. She laces her teaching with evidence-filled stories of the greater reality and practical tools that produce the personal experience of our multidimensional nature. Her connection with those across the veil has been scientifically validated in laboratory settings. Her messages bring hope and healing that go straight to the heart. You can find out more about her work by going to www.suzannegiesemann.com. I'll put that in the chat box. And I also just want to say that she is, again, going to be a keynote speaker at our conference, as she has every single year. And she's a huge supporter of Helping Parents Heal. We're very grateful to her. And without further ado, please join me and Irene in welcoming beautiful Suzanne Giesemann. Welcome, Suzanne.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Irene. Hi, everybody. I'm exhausted just listening to that. I don't know about you all. I was watching in gallery view as everybody was coming in, and I'm so excited because I recognize several pairs and single dear friends, and I'm surprised you're tuning in, but maybe you'll hear something new tonight, or maybe you just want to feel the love. I just want to jump through the screen and hug everybody. If I haven't met you yet, you're already a friend at the soul level. And I guarantee you our kids know each other through our connections, which is really cool. Okay, I'm already going off script, but I hope you have seen the video that I put online, Actual Evidence of the Afterlife, when I was urged to put on an unedited full-length reading so people could see what real evidential mediumship is like. It's not all perfect like you see on TV. We make mistakes, but oh, when the healing takes place, that's the whole goal. So I put on there the reading that I did for Dave and Patty Hart with their daughter Lauren. It's getting some beautiful reviews as people that are new to mediumship are surprised and can literally see the healing that takes place. Well, last week, I think it was, I sat to do a reading and my client came on Zoom and I looked at her and I said, have we met? And she said, I don't think so, but I'm a caring listener. And right away I go, oh no, now I know she has a child across the veil, because I don't want to know who people have when I do a reading, but I didn't know if it's male or female. Now I can't see the spirits yet. I'd like that, please. I have to feel them. I have to feel their personality. They have to give me evidence. I have to just sense, is this a male or female who passed? And what's the relationship? So right away I know it's a child, but I have no idea. And I'm just, having my own stepdaughter across the veil, I know how important it is to hear from our child when we sit with the medium. So I personally feel a little extra pressure when I know I have a shining light parent as a client. Well, I haven't even done my little routine to just shift gears. It only takes a moment, but I haven't tuned in yet. I'm still talking, just chit-chatting, just to put my client and her daughter, who was also on screen, at ease. And all of a sudden, here's Dave and Patty's daughter, Lauren, in spirit, which shows you that we really don't need rituals. We don't have to go through a process to tune in. Our loved ones are around, and I was certainly getting ready to open and expand my consciousness. But it's Lauren. I recognize her because I tuned into her multiple times. And she's with Carly, Irene Vuvalides' daughter. They were together in Lauren's reading when she came through to me the first time. And Lauren and Carly said, it's a girl and she's here with us. I got goosebumps. I don't know about any of you, but I got them again. But right then, I just knew this is going to be a good connection. And it was. And right away, I looked at her mom and her sister, and I said, you have a daughter and a sister across the veil, because she came in with two other members, daughters from Helping Parents Heal. So I just want you all to know that's how it works. So I want to share a little bit of magic that unfolded from that reading. Oh, I think it's going to be in the next newsletter. I hope Elizabeth doesn't mind me telling it now, but in that reading, lots of evidence. That's what I go for, the verifiable facts that we can't know, that then back up the messages that the loved ones have to share. I will tell you that this woman's daughter had a very tragic passing. Yeah, I don't know if that'll come out in the newsletter, but we'll just leave it at that. And yet, she came through full of joy, her personality, her pleasant, wonderful personality intact. So that's also a very important note. We get to the other side, and it doesn't matter how we pass. We feel that love. I can guarantee you this from thousands of readings, and that's what we're aware of. And we want nothing more than our loved ones here to know that. So she passed those messages along, and I could feel it was so. And so I usually don't ask this question of the spirits who come through unless their loved ones want to know and ask me. And I usually don't ask questions out loud, because if I ask a question out loud, what happens? You, the sitter, will think the answer, and I, the medium, could pick it up from you. And I don't want to do that. That's not fair. I want to hear it from the spirit. See, psychically, because we're open, we can pick things up. We want the conversation from the spirit. But in this case, I said out loud to the daughter in spirit, what are you doing in the afterlife? I said that one out loud because my client would not know, and I would not pick that up from her. And I said, your daughter's showing me braiding what looks like yellow grass And she just flashed in my mind the image of these women in Charleston, South Carolina, and Savannah, Georgia, near where I live, who braid grass and make baskets out of it. Does that make any sense to you? And neither her mother or her sister had any idea why she said that. A little later in the reading, I said, she's showing me again, braiding this yellow grass. Just remember it came up. This is when we just trust there's a reason for this. Well, 2 or 3 days later, my client had been a member of a group that had been meeting for years on Zoom after connecting with spirit class that they all took together, but they'd never met in person. And they met at this woman's home, my client's home. They all gathered, they're all hugging. You can imagine how happy they were. And the last woman to arrive was handing out gifts. And the last gift she handed out was for my client. Are you ready for this? It was like a horsetail of braided seagrass, yellow. I mean, what does that show us? That shows us that her daughter knew that gift was coming for her mom. See, they have the bigger picture, and I'm going to give you some more examples of this as we go along, but they can see what gifts are coming your way, who's coming to visit you, who's going to be born and what gender it is. They see much more than we do here and much easier. And so when I asked her, what are you doing across the veil? She wasn't braiding. She was seeing that being braided, or at least coming as a gift. So I hope that gives you all the hope that this is so. You know, I call myself a messenger of hope, but the goal is to go beyond hope. So the purpose tonight, Elizabeth and Irene wanted me to talk about my new book, The Awakened Way. My main purpose is to let you know why I wrote The Awakened Way. It's because when I started on this path after my Susan's death, all I wanted to know was that Susan is okay, and that Susan still exists, and that I could connect with her. That was my single-minded focus. And because of that, I now teach the methods to get to that point, because my intention was fulfilled. I have connected with Susan, and then that opened me up to connections with others, loved ones, and angels and guides, and any being across the veil is available to all of us. Let me make the point for those of you who are new to my work who don't realize I had no idea the spirit world is real before Susan passed. I had to buy books about the afterlife after she passed. I bought James Van Prague's book and thought, this is ridiculous. He says people are doing things on the other side like we do here. And now James and I are friends, and we laugh about me thinking his book was ridiculous, because it's not. But the point of this is that this ability to connect across the veil, whether or not you intend to be a medium, is innately your ability. We can open it up when we have the right tools and understand how it works, and our intention is clear and our belief is strong. But watch that desire. If you're like this, I have to connect with my child. Why isn't it working? That's why it isn't working. You learn to trust that you are a soul here and now. You learn that you are not only human. Now you are a soul and human. Not before you came here and only after you die. You return to being a soul. Wrong. You're a soul now, and that's how the connection takes place, soul to soul. The human says, why isn't this working? What am I doing wrong? I have to do this. The soul says, relax, my human side. They're right here. And if we can quiet our minds as we learn to open and be receptive and raise our consciousness, we open our abilities perfectly and in the perfect time. I was very frustrated and thought it needed to happen really fast, and it did not with Susan. But the rest of my abilities unfolded even before I connected with Susan. So my point of all of this is, you do not have to be what people call a born medium to connect with loved ones across the veil. You are a soul. not only human. You are part of one big web connecting all that is. And that web just showed itself, didn't it, with Carly and Lauren bringing Michelle through for my reading. They knew each other because I'm connected here with her mom through a reading. I'm connected with Irene. Now I'm connected with Patty and Dad Dave, who I can see on screen. Hi, guys. And the web just keeps showing itself to you. So that's what I learned from mediumship. And I also learned that we are all connected at the level beneath the human bodies, that these are not as solid as they appear. And I have a story from my book about how solid everything is or isn't that I'll share shortly. But when you have something that can't be separated, when we realize there's really no connection, no lack of connection between us, there's no separation between any of us on the screen now, our loved ones in spirit, is all connected as beings of light, lack of separation. That's my definition for love. And so you learned that love is the force that rules and runs the universe. And those three things that I just shared with you are what I learned from mediumship, from connecting across the veil, that you're not only human, you're part of one big web connecting all that is, and that love is the creative and healing force of the universe. And those three principles to live by, to know that, will change your life. That's the gift of mediumship to me. And those three things are the three principles of the awakened way. And that knowing came to me with utter confidence from a young man named Wolf, who I wrote about in my book, Wolf's Message. And he came back with a very clear message for all of us that we as a species are out of balance, that we believe we're only human. We pay much more attention to our left brain activities of judging and analyzing and thinking instead of feeling and flowing and being and recognizing our wholeness that comes when we kind of subdue that left brain logical side and turn up and pay attention to our right brain side. So we can say, get out of the left brain and into the right brain, or we could say, get out of the head and into the heart, whatever way you want to say it. Find the balance and you'll find your loved ones across the veil. That is the awakened way. So my whole purpose originally in doing this talk tonight was to share with you that it's wonderful to have a reading with the medium. Before I even opened up to the spirit world, I took my husband Ty to a medium to try and connect with Susan. At that point in our journey, we were still in deep, deep grief. We had no, that's right, no discernible evidence directly from Susan. My guide said, yes, you did. You had the butterflies, you had the TV that turned on by itself. I had all those signs, but no direct contact and communication is what I should have said. So I took Ty to a medium, and you know that he told me years later, he didn't even know what a medium was. And now he's married to one. He said that he went along because that's what good husbands do. They say, yes, dear. And it changed our lives, that reading, because that medium brought through evidence that Susan was right there in the room. So a reading with an evidence-based medium will transform you, just like that, right? I had another woman, Sandy Eastlick, sent me an email. Actually, I think I'll read it to you all now. She said, the reading she gave to my son, me, she was writing it to my whole team. The reading Suzanne gave to my son, John, the reading wasn't even for Sandy, from his brother in spirit, Matthew, was amazing. But the first time I listened to that reading, the most healing moment for me came when Suzanne was talking to Matt in spirit. She'd been giving evidence, but there came a moment when she said, he's saying, wait. Then she said out loud to Matt, what did you say? Then she told John what he said. In that moment, all of my grief melted away. She was actually talking to my baby. My son, who left this world by his own hand, was actually there. He was talking with her. All the healing I ever needed came flooding in. All the hurt and horror disappeared. Matthew hadn't gone anywhere. Since that moment, I knew my calling was to help others in the same way. Now I'm learning and growing exponentially. Please share how talking out loud with Matt that day wasn't daft, like Mavis Patilla says, but actually a life-changing miracle. I was a student of Mavis Patilla's years ago, and I said, Mavis, why don't you talk out loud to the spirits? And she said, they'll think you're daft. And I said, yeah, but this is a real conversation we're having. We're not pulling data out of the air. And I think just a little bit lets people know that they're right here. And she disagreed with me and I disagreed with her, and that's okay. And I loved that feedback from Sandy. So my point here is, look at that healing that provided to Sandy. Now she's going on to further her spiritual journey. There are so many people who have a reading and they then want another reading and another reading. And you can very easily get addicted to going to mediums. But there is nothing that can replace the personal experience of connecting with your own loved one. That's just part of living the awakened way, knowing you're only human, the web is here and you can connect with your loved one. But what does it all mean for you at the soul level? I would never want to go back to my life the way I was before Susan passed. Would I want to go back to being with Susan? In a heartbeat? But the way I feel inside, and hopefully the way I come across to other people now, as a result of what I've learned because of her passing, and the way I live, the awakened way, is transformational. So what my book does, it goes into the foundations of what I've learned from connecting daily with higher consciousness, opening to the personal experience of who we really are as souls. Daily since 2006. It's a long time already that Susan's passed, but she's right here. And it is a way of living, the awakened way. And like it says, it's living a divinely guided life, to know as a result of a wake-up call in your life, the worst thing that could happen to you, to come to know you really are never alone, that you are guided moment by moment. Who could ask for more than that? So the first half of the book is the foundational material of how to really come to know you're not only human, you're part of one big web, and what this stuff, love, really is. And then the second half of the book are tools, 25 different, very practical, some of them fun, all of them easy tools that you can apply to make those foundations part of your very being. And it doesn't have to be read all at once, and you don't have to do the tools in any order, but also to make it more interesting. Throughout the book, I've laced my personal evidence-filled stories. I talk about Susan's passing and some of the ways that I came to know that she's still here. But I also talk about interacting with a few other loved ones in the spirit world, and then some kind of out there beings who came through with very hardcore evidence. Many of you have heard some of these stories before, but it's those stories that open us to possibilities. You know, if she could have that experience, I want it too. And the book shows you how to have those experiences. One example that I'll share with you that Irene asked me to share kind of validates what I was saying earlier about this world not being so solid is, well, two examples of tuning into Carly, Irene's daughter, across the veil. One was I was writing the chapter that included a story about Carly, and she dropped in on me. Now, I knew that Irene and Tony had gone to see Top Gun 2 Maverick that day. So Carly says, yeah, my mom's in the theater and I was sitting with her and she went like this at one moment and hid her eyes. What does that tell us? Carly's right there in the theater. I love this because we were going over to have dinner with Irene and Tony. We live right around the corner from them in the winter. And I could validate this right away. So before I even had a chance to tell her Carly was with me, Irene says, oh, that movie. I couldn't even watch part of it. It was absolutely perfect. Just such a lovely validation. But the story that I was writing about in the book, and again, I apologize if you've heard this before, took place at a few years earlier when Ty and I were at Irene and Tony's. And the guys were downstairs in the kitchen just chatting. And I looked at Irene. I think it might have been a special occasion or maybe not. And I just said, let's go see if we could talk to Carly. And, you know, what a gift that is to just be able to do that. And I don't do that all the time. I'm not always tuned into spirits. And I just must have been nudged by Carly. So we went up to her family room over the garage. What do we call that? A frog, right? And we went up there and we're sitting there. And I just said, okay, Carly, I know a lot about you. So maybe you can just tell us current events going on. So your mom knows that you're aware what's going on. This is, again, one of those lovely validations for all of you that your kids are just such a part of your life. It's like sitting on a couch, you know, with the whole family. Maybe two of you are watching the TV. One isn't interested, so they're reading. You don't have to be interacting all the time to just be present. And then somebody says something about the other person, they tune in and then you talk a little bit and then you stop talking. That's how I picture the spirit world and our loved ones in spirit. They're right here, but we don't have to interact all the time. And just imagine how it pleases them when you acknowledge that they are still part of your life. So meanwhile, Carly comes in and she tells me that her stepsister had a cold. Irene validated that. She said several other things and told me some more things about her that I had not yet heard before. One of my favorites that isn't in this book, but it's in, oh, I've told it before, but I absolutely loved it, was when Carly said to me, I'm not a prima donna. And Irene started laughing because she is the affiliate leader in Bluffton, South Carolina. And just the previous Sunday, she had been leading the local affiliate meeting of Helping Parents Heal, and they were talking about Carly to the group. And Tony, Carly's stepdad, said, well, you know, Carly always was a bit of a prima donna. I mean, who can deny this, right? Irene's not thinking about it. And this just shows your kids, they hear your conversations, right? So be nice. They just love us so much. And they're talking about you across the veil with their new friends, the other kids in Helping Parents Heal. So in this particular case that I tell about in the book, I said, Irene, Carly just told me there is a dog treat under your couch downstairs. And she looked at me and I looked at her and we both said, I have to be wrong about that. Because if you read my book, Still Right Here, where I talk about the beautiful charter boat trip that the Boissons, the Buvalides, the Hollahans, hi guys, and the Giesemans took in the Caribbean and got to know each other and got to know our kids because they were along on that cruise in spirit. Irene's therapy is doing the floors. She would clean the floors on the boat. That's how I got to know that this is what brought her peace. And she cleans her floors at home much more than I do. I'll put it that way. And I knew that there is no way there is a dog treat under Irene's couch because she would have swept it up within the last 24 hours. Also, our two little dachshunds were downstairs. They came with us to the dinner, and Irene's and Carly's beautiful dog, Golden Doodle, Linus, was downstairs. So if there's a dog treat under the couch, the dogs would be like this, right? Our dogs would be under the couch. But you learn to trust spirit. So we go downstairs when we said, you know, bye-bye for now to Carly. And Irene looks under the couch and she looks at me, goes like this, like, it's not there, Suzanne. And you know, in the past, as a baby medium, I would have said, oh, I'm a terrible medium. I'm wrong. I got it wrong. And you'd come to trust. And I said, Irene, she said, it's under the couch. You just looked under the love seat. She looks at me. I get the goosebumps. She gets a flashlight. She gets down on her hands and knees under the couch, not the love seat. And she says, oh my God. And she reaches way under and pulls out a dog treat. I look at the husbands. I tell them what just happened. Tony and Ty look at each other, and I can't remember which one said it, but they said, that is over the top. And I said to Carly, who I know is still here, even though we said bye-bye for now upstairs, I said, Carly, how did you know that was there? So good question, right? And she answered immediately, Suzanne, your world is solid to you because all realities are relative. Our world across the veil seems solid to us. Many of you have probably seen What Dreams May Come, and you can pretend to walk on the earth and it seems solid, but then you can fly too, right? Different rules in the different realities. She said, I can see right through everything. We have X-ray vision. Makes perfect sense. It's a different vibration. So scientifically, it even makes sense. So a little lesson there, and just an example of one of many stories that are in the book, so that it's not just a dry book about science and spirituality. Although I hope you're like me, once you have a connection with your loved one, you will want to know, how is this possible? I mean, I started just knowing things about others, loved ones across the veil. Then I started feeling their personalities. Then I'm getting physical symptoms in my own body. How does this work? The tools in the book will show you. Science explains it. Spirituality explains it. I believe I stayed in the book. It was back in the last century, maybe in the 1970s. Isn't that crazy? The last century. I remember the 70s very well. That 3 scientists did some experiments where they took 2 subatomic particles that had been entangled, been together, and they separated them by hundreds, if not thousands of miles. And they changed the spin, the direction of spin of this one particle, and the one over here at a distance took on that spin, but not a second later. Instantly, at the same time, proving that at the subatomic level, beneath the level of the physical, there is no separation. Once particles that are a physical thing in this world have been entangled together, interacting, they are always instantly connected. Who could be more entangled than parents and their child? There is no separation when you go beyond the body. That experiment was done in 1970. It took until 2022 for the Nobel Physics Prize to be awarded to those 3 scientists. So the scientific world has taken a little while to catch up to what mediums have been saying for a long time. They're right here, your loved ones. You can't be separated. You are always entangled, and you sure don't need a body to sense their presence. They don't either. They're right here, and you can learn to connect with them. And the tools in this book go into my 7-step method, the Bless Me method, which is also in videos on YouTube. It's on my website on the gifts page. But it goes beyond connecting. That's my point. You know, there's so many tools that we can learn. Why are you here? That's the bottom line. We're all here to be the presence of love. There's a really cool thing that when you get a book on Kindle, as soon as 10 people highlight the same phrase, it gets a little dotted line underneath it on the Kindle player. So you can see what stands out for other readers. It's very rewarding and informative for me to go in my Kindle and see what's really resonating with people. And I could have told you in advance that one particular line was going to get that dotted line, and it does. And it's this: at the level of the soul, you are already whole. There is nothing wrong with you as a soul. Your soul is not wounded. Your soul chose to take on life in a physical body and live that life like a story. And the story, the character in the story gets hurt and wounded, and then can learn and grow from that. That's the point. And the soul expands as a result of that. So we could say the soul grows, but it's already whole. So it just becomes even brighter. I find that such a beautiful promise, and quite opposite from a lot of other teachers' teaching. It's just a shift in perspective. And this book will teach you to make the shift to a divinely guided life. And the shift is, I'm not only human, I am suffering now because my child passed. But just like that, using the tools in this book, I can expand my consciousness and be the observer of the story. Be the witness, stepping back and find this place within me and within you that never changes. That is peace. It's here already as the soul that you are. This book will teach you how to find that peace, how to get back in balance like Wolf came to show us, how to still feel the grief and honor your story and honor that aspect of you that said, I know I'm taking on a really tough assignment. Human being on earth, are you kidding me? With its ups and downs and challenges and people you love dying, and yet the growth that's possible as a result of that. I hope a lot of you, if not all of you, have already experienced ways in which you have changed that are actually positive because your child passed. And it's okay to say that, because those changes come about because you know they're here, and that's why they and you at the soul level took on this story. But the soul cannot be hurt. The soul says, I want all of it. The messiness, the good stuff, because, oh, when we come up for air from the suffering and we clear away some of those clouds, we find the sunlight is still here. It's always here. That's what makes this journey meaningful. That's what gives meaning to our children's passing. If you can't tell I'm passionate about this, it's because I've felt that grief. And it was a grief that no counselor could help me with. They give you platitudes. The ones I spoke to, this was back in 2006 when nobody knew to tell me, go look for your daughter in the spirit world. Hopefully, happily, now more and more counselors are coming to know that if we can acknowledge spiritual aspects of our being and the fact that there's an afterlife, we can enact healing much more quickly. But I've been there, and I'm not there now. I will also tell you that I interviewed someone recently who's had a spiritual awakening. And that person said, and I know now that I don't have to grieve, and I won't ever grieve again if my loved ones pass. And I had to bite my tongue. It wasn't my podcast. I was doing an interview for someone else. And I can tell you right now, as any of my loved ones pass, I will grieve. Why? Because we are human and souls. And to not feel grief for the lack of a physical presence is not honoring our wholeness. And the reason we feel empty, which is one of the main points in this book, is that as a culture, humans have come to believe the BS, that stands for belief system, that everything has to be happy, everything has to be positive. And so the moment we don't feel good, and this is also hardwired in our bodies, we try to suppress those not so good feelings. I don't even like to call them negative feelings anymore. I've completely changed my vocabulary in the last month. To label bad feelings bad or negative makes it seem like something we want to push away and get rid of. A battery has a positive end and a negative end, and there's no flow of current if you don't have both. So if you don't even like the sound of negative feelings, why don't we call them positive feelings and not positive feelings? And the reason people feel empty is the minute they have those not positive feelings, we try to push them away or sedate them, right? Alcohol, sugar, drugs, shopping, spirituality, all kinds of ways to only feel the good. Well, I learned to feel, and my learning continues. I teach my monthly webinars, the monthly connection, and I'm constantly putting myself on report for ways that the one recent one was how my lovely husband Ty triggered me, and I lost it. I needed to use the human soul dial technique that I teach in the book. I was human 100%. But then I learned in the other section in the book to take that awareness that I lost it into meditation. And I used practices from the book. I use them all the time to ask my guides, what was that all about? And once they showed me a childhood wound within the story, because the soul is whole and complete, I was able to heal it. And that's no longer triggered. And now I can feel even more love. You see how the journey builds on itself, and the soul is just saying, yeah. I don't want to do Q&A because there's so much I want to share with you, if you don't mind. I just want to keep going just a little longer. I tell in the book about going to the movie theater, and I don't remember what movie I saw, but when it was over, I head to the bathroom. That's what most of us do right after the movie's over. And this other theater let out at the same time, and in come a whole crowd of women, and they all looked like they just came from a funeral. I had never felt that kind of energy from people coming out of the theater. I looked at one woman, I said, what movie did you guys just watch? And she said, we just saw American Sniper. And I thought, oh my God, I don't want to go to a movie and feel like that. Why would anybody pay money to feel like that when you come out of the movie? And then my guides put some inspiration in my head, and they said, isn't that what the soul does? It takes on a body for the full experience. And I thought, all right, what if the guys just said, you didn't think it, we gave you the inspiration. All right, I'm gonna go pay good money to watch American Sniper, but I'm gonna be in soul perspective throughout. I'm going to sit on the balcony like our souls are watching us right now, kind of watching the choices we make. And I'm going to see if I can remain compassionate yet detached throughout this whole movie. And I saw why people were upset at the end. And yet I did it. I maintained multiple tools from the book. One of the easiest of saying, isn't that interesting? when something not so positive happens. And you know what was most interesting? The bad guys in that movie weren't bad guys to me. They were human beings who had forgotten they are souls, because hurt people. And the bad guys in that movie would not have done what they did if they had known how to make the shift to the balcony and observe from the soul's perspective and make bigger choices. It kind of took all the fun out of going to the movies, right? Not at all. It was a very big learning experience. And the point is for all of us to learn to do that here, because this life can have some pretty serious drama, can't it? But with awareness and tools and the intention and the choice to live the awakened way, you can choose to get knocked over by the drama. And it will happen. But once you really awaken to who you are, beautiful soul, you won't stay down so long. I interviewed Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor in my podcast a couple weeks ago. It was so great that I had her back for part 2, which will air July 7th, maybe the 14th, part 2. She made this point in there, the same point about the souls loving the messiness, because, and I agreed with her on air, we know at soul level we can't die and we can't get hurt. And so we also know that we'll grow in loving while we're here as a result of that, if we remain awake and aware. I hope that I'm inspiring you to make some changes in your life if you're not feeling peaceful, if you feel knocked off balance and you stay down too long, because there's nothing wrong with any choice you make. In the human mind, there is, but at the soul level, it's a matter of how much love are you radiating? It would be nice if it were more. You will grow as a result. When we cross the veil, you know what your guides want to know? How much more love are you bringing back in your energy field? They're not judging us. That's human stuff. We judge ourselves. We judge others. So enough about that. So the 3 E's of the awakened way that I talk about, there are 3 ways you grow. All of this is what I'm going to be talking about on my cruise to the Mediterranean. I see some of you going on there. I just opened up registration for a cruise to the Caribbean. Chances to get together. I had so many awakened Shining Light parents on the Alaska cruise. Not everybody can afford a cruise. So my monthly connection webinars also share this. Also check out the free stuff on the gifts page on my website. I just heard from somebody, oh yeah, just the other day, who just discovered my 10-minute transformation, the chakra clearing exercise. I take it for granted that people know about these tools. I use that myself when I get knocked off balance. Do you know that you can have a nightmare, not remember it, not be aware of it, but wake up in the morning and just feel out of sorts? You're not yourself. And it was from the nightmare that you were rolling around in for a little while. So how do you get over that? Do the 10-minute transformation. First thing in the morning, your day is set. So check that out. That's free on my website. Another one on my website that I highly recommend. I wish I should say it every time I give a talk. The meditation, it's more of an experience than a meditation. It's a recording called Journey of Remembrance. I had the blessing of going to a sound studio with a man who channels music, Richard Schulman. He went in one booth, I went in another. I had no idea what my guides were going to say. He channeled music live, and I went into an expanded state of consciousness, and my guide, Sanaya, spoke this beautiful journey about who you are as a soul. They said you will call this a journey of remembrance, and they take you through the 7 sacred aspects of the soul that you already have now. And those include peace. That's why I say, just learn some of these tools and you access the peace. It's not out here. It's an innate aspect of your soul. Another one is courage. Why they say, and we say, what do you mean I'm never given more than I can handle? I can't handle this. Well, you are. Here you are. And that's because the soul knows no fear. And the soul knows how strong it is. We just have to let that filter down to our human aspects. The effect of those words coming from spirit with their energy combined with this channeled divine music will transport you. I was really knocked off balance about a year ago. I don't know what caused it. It wasn't time. It was just stuff. And I could not shake it. I did my 10-minute transformation. Nothing was getting rid of this funk. And the guide said, listen to the journey of remembrance. I said to Ty, I got to go for half an hour. I took a chair down next to the water. I sat there. I put that on. It made me cry, not with sadness, with joy, as the soul was like, you just forgot for a little while. The soul is always right here. And that's where your courage and your peace and the gratitude, even for the not so positive times, comes from. And that's where the love comes from. That's the divine love. And that's where the joy comes from. That's a joy that's always here. It's not the human one that depends on good versus not good feelings. I hope that all of you will discover this as a result of checking out the book. I'll end this with one more tool from the book that Irene asked me to share, and a little quick backstory. The exercise is called Silence on the Bridge. And this is an incredibly practical tool. You can see that, let me just say, all of these tools will help you and are designed and guided by spirit to help you raise your consciousness, which will make it easier for you to connect with your loved ones across the veil. So that's always an underlying goal. But they will also bring you more peace and joy in day-to-day moments. They'll also lead you to be consciously connected to spirit as you go about your daily life. What a blessing that is. So this one came about, the name for it came about when we had just bought a new powerboat, and I never owned a boat with 2 engines, which is a little different than the sailboats I was used to driving. And Ty said to me, you want to take her out the first time? This boat's 54 feet long. We no longer have the boat, but the story stays with me. So the previous owner of the boat came along on our initial voyage just to make sure that he could show us the ins and outs of the boat. So I'm taking her out of the slip. You know, in the Navy, you learn to just say can do. You can't say, well, I can't do it. You just do it. So I take the helm and I'm testing the engines. We're pulling out. Everything's going fine. And here comes a drawbridge. I have to stop the boat, no brakes, right? Stop the boat, hold her in place in spite of the wind and the current. As we wait for the drawbridge to raise, we got to pick up the radio and call the drawbridge. Well, the owner of the boat decides at this moment to just start yakking and telling an old family story that he thought was pretty funny. I need to concentrate, and I can't concentrate because he's talking in my ear, but I didn't want to say anything. And suddenly, Captain Ty, who has 26 years of experience as a ship's captain, says a phrase that I never, in our 30 years together, ever heard him say. He suddenly, in full captain mode, says, "Silence on the bridge!" Both of us, my dog just got startled over here. Both of us, the previous owner and I go, oh my God. And I looked at him and I said, didn't I warn you that Ty will be in mission mode today? And he was. It was very effective. It immediately brought everybody focused on the task at hand. A little later, we've already now brought the boat down to our new home port, and you have to go through a lock to get it into the marina. And I'm bringing the boat into the lock. There's like 6 inches on each side, and my little left brain, my human side, my human dial is fully dialed up as this little voice is saying, what if I hit the wall on the right side, on the starboard side? What if I don't stop in time? What if? And I'm feeling what? Fear. Out of balance. This is not my normal way of being. And suddenly my guide said, put your tongue on the roof of your mouth. Just flatten that tongue to match the roof of your mouth. Don't put the tip of the tongue up like that. Just raise it up as if you have peanut butter on the roof of your mouth and your entire tongue is stuck there. I hope all of you are trying this right now. Just like that. The moment I did that, all those little not so positive voices disappeared. Silence on the bridge inside. And without those little voices, I intuitively knew how to get the boat in there. It's just, I've been driving boats, not two engines, for decades. Not only that, it was fun. So I get through the lock, and then now we have to get it in the slick. We've got to turn it on a dime and pull into this slick with pilings, and all of a sudden my voice is saying, oh my God, what if I give it too much power? What if I hit the pier? And I remembered the trick. I put my tongue up there. The voices stopped, slipped the boat in there, and I said to my husband, pardon my language, this is so freaking fun. Well, I asked the guides, why does this work? And it's because we are energetic beings. And we have one circuit that runs up the front of us, that's the feminine energy. We have another circuit that runs up the back and down here, that's the masculine energy. And when you put that tongue on the roof of your mouth, it completes the circuit and the energy flows, positive and negative, masculine and feminine, and you are whole. And there's no room for that little off-balance voice to tell you to be afraid. I shared this with Irene when we were on a road trip once. She tried it and she instantly lost any nervousness of passing the big 18-wheelers going 70 miles an hour. She tells me now she uses it every time she does her golf swing, and it has greatly helped her game. So this is what I mean about practical tools. But the bottom line is we came here as souls to shine our light, to experience the love that is you. You're a beautiful soul. Your kids across the veil are beautiful souls. And the beautiful part about living the awakened way is the more you help your own light shine, the greater possibility you have of connecting randomly and hopefully on purpose with your kids and other loved ones across the veil and your guides. Everybody's trying to help you. We have to first make the choice to help ourselves. So it's been my total joy to talk with you this evening. I could talk with you for weeks on end. I look forward to seeing those of you who will be at the conference, giving lots of hugs. And I just love you all, and I love your kids. And trust me, they know what's going on in your lives, and they love you immensely.
This has been wonderful, and there are so many people writing in the chat box how much the presentation has meant to them and how much they love you, how all of these different tools that you have been mentioning have helped them. And I'm excited to have, I put some of them in the chat box as well. Irene, would you like to say something before we close?
Oh, just thank you so much, Suzanne, and just so much love to everyone. It's just so wonderful to feel so connected to everybody, and our kids connected us, and we're connected. And like Suzanne said, I can't imagine my life before Carly passed. Going back, I'm just, I'd do anything if I could have her here with me. But what my life is now, I'm just so grateful. And I'm grateful to you, Suzanne, for everything that you've helped me with and you've done for everyone.
I just want to say, if I could say just final parting words, these two women, I know from personal experience of knowing them both and popping over to Irene's house, work tirelessly for all of you. And I know the whole board does, but these two women, I've never seen anything like it. So thank you both. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we feel the same way about you. We know that you work tirelessly as well. And we always ask everyone to unmute and say thank you. Thank you for this beautiful book, The Awakened Way. Hopefully all of you have been able to to experience it, to read it. It's amazing. And again, if you'd like to unmute and just say something
Yes,
as
do.
we're signing
Please
off,
unmute.
do.
I think everybody can now. Yes,
Thank
go ahead,
you.
unmute yourselves.
Thank
Thank
you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, all.
Thank you,
Bye.
Suzanne.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Elizabeth. Love to you
Thank you,
all.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Night, night.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you.
Everybody,
all.
love
Yes,
you
thank
guys.
And it was such a wonderful meeting. Have a wonderful evening. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.